Another quick start learning from Agile Innovation Labs. A successful approach for behavior-driven development and test-driven development is using the whole team engagement of the discuss, distill, develop, demo cycle. Discuss. Our business requirement is to extend the life of a critical batch payroll application by exposing it on the network. The whole team meets to gain understanding of this development effort. The business stakeholder shares their vision for what the new system should do and why it is valuable. The team asks lots of questions. They discuss user and customer interactions with the system. They play what if for different paths, edge cases, and invalid scenarios. There's discussion and notes on REST, endpoints, and APIs. Here's our architecture diagram for a possible solution. Distill. The team uses Gherkin, a business-readable, domain-specific language to describe the range of behaviors that the system must provide. Let's examine in detail the development of a single behavior of the API. This is a feature file written in Gherkin. Given, when, and then are keywords of the Gherkin language. Right off, our IDE indicates warnings. This is expected because we have not yet written any code for the API. Let's run the feature through the Cucumber test runner. Notice that Cucumber emits a range of warnings. Develop. The test engineer and software engineer now begin to write code. The warnings from Cucumber contain informational snippets that we are advised to implement. We use the snippets to template a JavaScript function. Cucumber calls these step definitions. We named it add-employee.steps.js. Note the comment, write code here that turns the phrase above into concrete actions. We run the feature file again, which invokes the newly added step definition. The result is more warning messages, 1 pending and 2 skipped. Cucumber stops when it encounters an error. We need to write some code to remove the warning messages. We've written the simplest code to facilitate establishing an insert resource. We learned in our whole group discussion that the HTTP post verb will insert a given payload to a defined endpoint. We run the feature file again, which results in more errors from Cucumber. These errors indicate that a network connection was refused. Examining our architecture diagram, we see that we need to write some code, ideally a server to process HTTP post endpoint. Here we shift from behavior-driven development into test-driven development. In TDD, we always start with a failing test. Here is the simple test to express the API's processing of a post endpoint. If the endpoint exists, we expect the API to return a status code of 201. Naturally, this fails. Here is our API code to process the post endpoint. Note that we force a successful response. Let's start the API. If the API code is correct, then the test turns green. And here's the API output. Let's add another test. This one expresses the API's processing of the post endpoint when no payload is sent. Note that the first test still shows passing, but the second test fails. Recall that we previously forced the API to always return a successful response. Next, we add code to the API to process different responses depending on if the incoming payload contains data or is empty. If that code is correct, then the tests pass. Both tests are now green. Let's examine our architecture diagram. Next, we need to connect to the existing batch payroll application. We added code to the API to import it. Let's include some tests to prove the existing batch payroll application can be accessed. Note in our test, the employee name is payroll hourly. Let's run all the tests. The API tests are green, and our new batch payroll application tests are green. We see in the log the employee records were added. The database also shows that employee records were added. Let's resume our feature development by implementing the when step. We write just enough code to facilitate submitting the employee record. Note in our test, the employee name is BDD hourly. Let's run the feature tests. When we see that the when is now green, this indicates that we are successfully communicating with the API and the batch payroll application. The two passing steps are the when and the then. We see in the log that an employee record was added. The database also shows that an employee record was added. Let's finish our feature development by implementing the then step. We write just enough code to determine that an employee record was created. Note in our test, the employee name is BDD hourly. Let's again run the feature tests. We see that all three steps are green: the given, when, and the then. We see in the log that the employee record was added. And the database shows that the employee named BDD hourly was added. Lastly, let's again run the test-driven development tests. They are all green. That's it. A really quick introduction to understanding how to combine behavior-driven development and test-driven development. Another quick start learning from Agile Innovation Labs.